The GPU market's been in flux all year, but it's finally started to look good right when everything else started to look really bad. And unfortunately, the stuff that looks really bad is also in GPUs, and that's memory. The new rumor is that NVIDIA will no longer bundle memory with GPUs, meaning partners will be on their own to source their own memory inventory, and that'll almost definitely result in worse pricing for board partners, ending up with more of an FE advantage while also embracing the memory supply impact on VRAM pricing. Now, just to be clear, that doesn't mean that NVIDIA is going to start shipping 0 gigabyte GPUs, but of course, that is their ultimate goal. Now, part of this is because of NVIDIA's push for AI and the, what was it that Jensen got excited about again with AI?
We're going to be rich.
That's right, the being rich part, the $5 trillion company. We have a separate video up though covering the memory side of the business, and VRAM will ultimately be impacted on this, which will impact GPU prices. Even still, we're looking at GPU prices as they stand right now to update our GPU pricing series from earlier this year. Based on the data, people still aren't buying 8 gigabyte GPUs. And the higher end cards are still the worst examples of average price and average percent increase over MSRP. Pricing and availability in the GPU market have noticeably improved since we last collected the data in early June. Instead of only 13 current gen GPU models available for MSRP, there are now 58 listings in stock at MSRP, and the number of total in-stock listings increased from 135 to 171. So far, these are good things. Prices have also improved, with average price for in-stock listings decreasing for nearly every current gen GPU. The 5090 was also the only GPU not available for MSRP. It was also the only GPU that increased in average price since we collected them last, continuing to demonstrate how NVIDIA's lack of competition from AMD and Intel in the high-end market segment inevitably leads to consequences for consumers. GPU pricing's looking a little better, and we don't know how long that's going to last at this point, but anyway, we looked at this stuff when we did our fake MSRPs video earlier this year, talking mostly about the 9070XT and the 9070 and how the MSRP was fake. And then we also talked again in June about the low sales of the 8 gigabyte cards. So for this one, we're going to go back through pretty much everything at a top level, and then we do have a special segment focused specifically on the 9070XT, so that's a lot of this today, because we want to do a follow-up on the deepest dive into pricing problems for GPUs earlier this year, which was AMD's card, because their MSRP at launch was absolute fucking bullshit. And we can see today just how much that stayed true until recently. So let's get into some of the data. Before that, this video is brought to you by Haven and their new BF360 Flow case. The Haven BF360 Flow is a high airflow case with a focus on performance, with the model that includes fans using two 180mm front intake fans at 40mm thick, in combination with a 120mm rear exhaust fan. In our previous testing of the case, we found its thermal performance to be among the best performers on our charts. The BF360 uses a scooped shroud near the GPU that our smoke testing found deflects the air into the leftmost GPU fan for more targeted GPU intake. It also has marked cable management channels, rubber grommets on most metal contact points, and what we think is overall good build quality. Learn more about the Haven BF360 Flow at the link in the description below. All right, so we're revisiting prices in the GPU market. We collected a few data points over the last few months to check in. The most recent data point was just before Thanksgiving, which is just before, to the extent that they exist, I guess, Black Friday sales, Cyber Monday sales, stuff like that. So we grabbed a snapshot before all of that to get the sort of most stable, most recent environment for the GPU prices. I think the data is representative of the prices we can kind of expect to see before the incoming DRAM price hikes impact the DRAM side of the industry. This will impact video card memory pricing as well. And so we're going to get our last look at that, I guess. I mean, hopefully the GPU makers can kind of keep it at bay, but I really sincerely doubt it. So we're going to get a look at it before it changes again. So then the rumors that NVIDIA's unannounced 50 series super launch will be delayed as a result of the VRAM, AMD seems to be following a similar path. Found via Dan Neistat on Twitter, quote, AMD has notified supply chain partners it will raise graphics card prices 10% across the entire product line due to rising memory chip prices. It will reportedly be AMD's second such price increase, end quote. Further, the newest information suggests, again, NVIDIA will stop selling the packaged memory with GPUs, and we would bet that the AIB partners will get worse rates than NVIDIA does. So today's video is going to be pretty straightforward compared to some of the more in-depth technical ones we've done lately, like our Linux GPU benchmarking, which you should check out if you haven't. This is Much simpler though, it's just prices. We'll start by examining how GPU pricing and availability has changed within the 5.5 months since we collected prices last. Then we'll take a closer look at the 9070 XT's price history, as that's currently our most comprehensive data set for any individual GPUs. Finally, we'll wrap with additional observations and extra charts we put together trying to figure out how to visualize the data. And methodologically, this matters too. Last time we did this, we collected data from Newegg, Amazon, and Micro Center. This time, we eliminated the other two, Amazon and Micro Center. Newegg has right now the most stable prices from the most first-party sold and shipped by Newegg options, with the least kind of bullshit in there from third-party sellers. And Micro Center's got the issue of a lot of its GPU prices are predicated on in-store purchases and often combos of some kind. And so it just muddies the data too much. So we're just looking at Newegg because our goal here is kind of comparative of how is the situation changing. We don't really care which retailer has the best price. You can take care of that on your own if you're actually going to buy something. We just care about the comparison. We're also only working with in-stock listings. So this approach isn't perfect, and the average prices will lean higher because typically GPUs sell out at their cheapest models first, but that's the method we established earlier this year, and everyone seems pretty good with it. Remember also that we don't have the actual inventory unit counts for GPU models over all the retailers. No one really does, but we can use the number of models a certain GPU has in stock to draw inferences from it. Obviously, that doesn't tell us the quantity though. Let's get into some charts. Our first charts will look at average prices for in-stock listings and how they've changed since we collected data in June. Of course, we also understand that other regions have different prices. For this piece, we're focusing on the market we know the best so that we can just kind of focus the data density. Compared to our June check-in, all current generation graphics cards had at least some price drop, except for the 5090. The largest price reduction since June came from the RX 9070 XT, RTX 5080, and RTX 5070 Ti. The 9070 XT dropped from $837 in June to about $655, or over 20%, with the $600 MSRP a further 8% below the average. And just to put it out there again, $837 in June is absolutely insane for this video card. Since June, the 5080's in-stock average decreased by $155, or 10%, to its $1,360 in-stock average now. The 5070 Ti followed similarly. Its in-stock average decreased by $130, or 14%, to its current in-stock average of $820. The 5060 Ti, 5060, and 9060 XT are the cheapest and started closer to MSRP, so it makes sense that they were the least impacted in terms of absolute reductions to their in-stock average prices. They saw reductions from $15 to $50. Intel has improved dramatically, dropping from $344 on average to $264 for the B580 GPU, which is a $250 MSRP. So $344 was already completely insane. The B570 dropped from $308 to its $220 MSRP. These are significant changes by percentage, at 23% reduction for the B580 and 29% price reduced for the B570. So that's good to see. As for the RTX 5090, it was the only card to increase in price that we tracked in the US, with an average of $50 greater than it was in June. Considering it doesn't have competition, this price stability makes sense, but it's obviously discouraging to see an increase, and this one will be the most impacted by VRAM prices due to its capacity. It has the most VRAM, so an increase in cost in memory in general will impact it disproportionately. Without price suppression from NVIDIA's direct sourcing, it could climb the most. Using only in-stock listings, this chart shows the average price percent over MSRP baseline. The ARC B570 and B580 GPUs had outlier overages beyond MSRP previously and stand out as having the greatest return to normal pricing. We dug into this further and found these reductions were most notably caused by Wei Liao's Battle Mage cards disappearing from listings. These listings were previously the most expensive for ARC, and since ARC has so few models available, they were often among the few that were in stock, so they were disproportionately affecting it previously. MSRP for the 5060 Ti 8GB is currently higher than the retail price by a thin percentage, aligning with the fact that these are still having the most trouble selling to DIY enthusiasts, so you've done well. That's probably of no concern to NVIDIA though, because SIs and OEMs will still be able to use them to mislead their customers. The 9060 XT 8GB is in a similar situation at 2.9% over MSRP now for 8GB. The 16GB models of these cards are at 7.8% and 8.3% over MSRP. The 5060 non-Ti is also close to baseline at 3.5% over on average. Some overhead past MSRP is normal, as partner models always include boards with quality of life features like better acoustics or thermals, that may actually warrant a higher price within reason, and these percentages are reasonable. Looking at the data as a whole, the combined average percent over MSRP for all in-stock GPUs collectively noted by us has decreased from 27.8% over MSRP in June to 10.7% currently. In any case, broadly speaking, prices are getting better. There's still a lot to be desired, but we're optimistic that things are moving in the right direction, and we are pessimistic that this will soon stop, because that's the wrong direction for the manufacturers. Number needs to go up because bigger number better. This table shows how the number of total and MSRP listings in stock for each current generation graphics card has changed from June to the present. Total in-stock listing count increased by 26.7% from 135 to 171 model GPUs since June, with in-stock MSRP listings up 346.2% to 58 from 13 previously. This is heavily contingent on when the stock is checked, obviously, and we don't know the total volume difference, but that will align with the total volume difference. Intel's Arc B580 and B570 both saw reductions to their in-stock listing total due to Liao's removed Newegg listings, which again we think is a good thing, and this was for the best. The 5090 also had a noticeable decrease in listings, down from 9 in July to only 4 at the time of data compilation. GPUs that saw the greatest increases to in-stock listings include the 5070 Ti at 27 from 12, then the 9070 XT, and the 16GB 5060 Ti and 9060 XT, each with 8 to 9 more in-stock models than previously. The 5070 and 8GB 5060 Ti each gained 10 in-stock MSRP cards for the greatest improvements in this category, so that's good to see at least, although the 8GB 5060 Ti is probably because no one wants it. At the time of writing this, all current gen GPUs, the GPUs themselves, excluding the 5090, are available for MSRP, up from 3 of 13 GPUs previously. We won't adjust this after writing, even if it changes, but before editing, because it's important to methodologically lock in the comparison at a fixed timestamp for each device. Overall, GPU availability has definitely improved since June. Moving on to the 9070 XT's troubled pricing history. This table compiles all 9070 XT listings we've pulled from Newegg since the GPU's launch, with averages inclusive of all models and prices collected in March, June, and November of this year. During its release, the 9070 XT's average price was $729, or 21.5% over MSRP. From launch to June, average price increased to $787, or 31.2% over MSRP. Things got worse, making AMD's MSRP promise, in our eyes, a flat-out lie. Since then, the 9070 XT's average decreased, resulting in an all-time low average of $660, or 10% over MSRP currently. That's down from 31% over in June. The 9070 XT's availability also considerably improved since this summer, growing from 3 of 15 to 12 of 14 listings in stock. Unfortunately, this isn't a perfect comparison because the models listed on Newegg changed each time we collected the results, as indicated by the gaps in our table. That's why we made this one. In this table, we've narrowed our results to only include the 8 specific 9070 XT models that remained listed throughout each of our data captures. Naturally, the results seen here largely correspond with those from the previous table. Each listing's price increased or didn't change from launch to June, and then decreased in the time from June to now. And that includes a couple weeks ago as well, when we took a different timestamp before the Black Friday week, whatever they call it now, sales. The averages of $720 initially went to $801 this summer, and then $675 currently. Generally speaking, aside from the summer spike, this aligns with how pricing typically changes over time, especially for AMD GPUs that tend to launch a little too close to NVIDIA pricing. Average price being currently lower than it was at launch is promising, but we only saw one 9070 XT model at MSRP at the time of data compilation. We'd like to see more from AMD on this front, especially considering the company's extremely defensive claims about it being inaccurate, as they said, to call the 9070 XT's MSRP a launch-only pricing. AMD is twisting reality with its prior statement and has now been objectively proven to be false, making them, in our opinions, either liars or manipulators, if not both. They would have done better to just shut the fuck up and put the GPU in the bag, like we said previously. Now, moving on to some of our less conclusive findings. This chart represents the total and in-stock listing count for each GPU vendor's current series GPUs on Newegg. Out of the 243 total current gen Newegg listings, 192, or 79%, were provided by NVIDIA. NVIDIA is claimed to have around 90 to 94% of GPU market share, so this somewhat aligns with that. 133, or 70%, were in stock. AMD partners provided 42, or 17.3%, of Newegg's current GPU listings, with 39 out of its 42 in stock, meaning 93% in stock. Intel partners supplied 9 GPU models, making up just under 4% of all current gen Newegg listings, with nearly 90% of its models in stock. Obviously, we'd like to see more competition from AMD and Intel here, especially AMD, but both companies have a lot of work to do if they ever hope to challenge NVIDIA's dominance over the GPU market in any meaningful way. There's a game here that NVIDIA is playing, and it correlates with its market share, so that makes sense, but they are flooding the shelves just to be the most present by volume, which helps with consumer perception, but also just the odds of someone clicking on your model. It's a chicken or egg problem for the non-NVIDIA, though, because without more market share, it's hard to justify more model GPUs. This chart explores a different approach for a metric that's representative of around the cheapest price you could realistically find any of these new GPUs for. We wanted to eliminate overpriced partner models. We came up with what we're calling average low price, calculated using each GPU's 4 cheapest in-stock first-party listings. This is particularly useful for excluding each GPU's most overpriced models. This chart illustrates the difference between each GPU's average low price and its MSRP. Average low prices for the 5060 Ti 8GB, 5070, 5060, 9060 XT 8GB, and 9070 were all below their MSRPs, ranging from between $7.50 to $32.50 less. Continuing down the chart, we notice that the majority of current gen GPUs had average low prices basically equal to MSRP. This is a strong indicator that prices are gradually getting better, generally speaking. It's just unfortunate as this is likely temporary due to the memory situation. Finally, taking the cake as the most egregious example on the chart, the RTX 5090's average low price was $1,100 over its $2,000 MSRP. Again, highlighting NVIDIA's lack of competition in the high end. The conclusion here is really simple. I mean, it's just as a whole, the GPU market from a pricing standpoint is better, just period, across all GPUs except for the 5090, which has generally gone up slightly. So in-stock average price has decreased for all but one current series GPU on Newegg. Count of in-stock listings increased from 135 to 171. That's good, it gives more options. Those available for MSRP increased from 13 to 58. Previously, the 5060, 8GB 5060 Ti, and 8GB 9060 XT were the only new GPUs available for MSRP on Newegg. At the time of writing this, all current series GPUs have MSRP listings in stock except for the 5090. Unfortunately, the 5090 was largely unaffected by the market's improvements and continues to stand out in terms of the most abysmal price hikes over MSRP. We may check back in a few more months specifically to look for any meaningful price reductions to the 5090, but we generally think that these are probably the most stable prices we'll see in the GPU market before the DRAM price increases start getting passed along to the consumer here as well. Can't really make any forecasts. We really tried not to, but you know, if you asked me, and if I had to guess at it, my guess is that the GPU prices will probably trend up, not down, going forward, at least for some period of time due to the memory situation. So if you want to know more about, if you're like watching this, you're like, what the fuck happened to RAM? We have a video for you. It's called RAM: what the fuck? ? I think it's very aptly titled. It kind of gets the whole picture across in just, what is that, 6 letters, a question mark, and a colon. I mean, that is an efficient use of punctuations and letters if I've ever seen one. So if you don't know what is going on, specifically the fuck, then you can check out that video to learn about it. Otherwise, yeah, that's your update on GPU pricing. We have best cases online and best coolers online now if you want to check those out. And then, yeah, plenty more coming up. So subscribe as always. And you can go to store.gamersnexus.net to help us out directly. Thanks for watching. We'll see you all next time.